Oops, welcome back. Thought I unmuted myself, but apparently I didn't. At least I caught it. In the top left has the yellow Protoss. It is Rob. And in the bottom right has the blue Terran. It is Drunkenboi. Popping up in these WCS qualifiers. But otherwise, not really, you know, too many online tournaments. Not that there are, I guess, a ton high-profile ones for the North American scene, but it's always been around, always been pretty good. Has a little bit of the Masa effect, just but, you know, he kind of shows up, he hears something is pretty good, and he does it, and he's kind of talented, so he actually does pretty well with it. But I do always wonder, like, exactly how much he's been practicing. To get into the qualifier, you have to be at least Masters, which is just not a problem for people who have been Grandmasters in the past. Even when they're, like, 40 or 50 years old, I actually think they could maybe work at it and get back to Masters. But this guy he's GM, and he's been playing, so it's more of a question to me, not to, does he know of this build? Obviously, he scouted for it a little bit, but does he know how to handle it perfectly? So, no Nexus, you know, first confirmation on that. He's going to go ahead and Engineering Bay block, which can be a powerful maneuver against this type of build. You are supposed to get the Nexus behind this, is kind of one of the strengths of it. But he's going to have trouble getting his own CC on location should he go for it. Should be on the high ground, and yeah, I would even say that he should be going for an extra couple of units. So Rob definitely doesn't want to have to deal with this. Drunkenboi wanted to get the scout into the main though, so he didn't have the healthiest engineering bay there. Maybe should have bought a little bit more time, but now he will have the full wall off on the high ground. Command center also coming here. One of the discussions that happened right in the pylon show is that a Marauder follow-up can be very powerful. Marauder slow, obviously being a very fast, good upgrade. Marauder having an extra bit of range as well, just from the get-go. And then also, Tech Lab is built faster than reactors. Marauders are also healthier. I mean, I can definitely see that, how that would really help, because it's not the first Zealot that really gets you a problem, nor is it the second one should they do that. It's the Stalkers that also come with it, in which case Marines really start to struggle since they're already microing against the Zealot. But having a high ground command center is super helpful. Having the wall off is super helpful. Drunkenboi has held against this, not with the Marauders, but rather with a engineering bay block and high ground defense. So this can really spiral out of control. And it is, I think, somewhat still dependent on not just being scouted straight up, but more and more we see Terran players do an SCV scout. And we even see, against maybe on, you know, memeier players or on the NA ladder, we see even scouts towards max packs locations. So pretty okay opener there for Drunkenboi, who still has the unfortunate high ground situation. It just feels like a little off whenever you have to lift your command center over. But he has dealt with this without damage and is now going to clean it up. Rob, gonna go ahead and get to a Stargate here. Already croning out that Oracle, something that Drunkenboi has not quite seen, but this is some clever Woodamine positioning. I mean, it doesn't hit the Oracle, it might be useless, but it could hit an Adept, could hit a Stalker. And it might just hit the Oracle. No, it is not. If the Oracle was headed more towards the main, it might have. But it is headed mostly to the natural. Follow-up of a Phoenix and a Robo. Not nearly as fast as a Stalker, I guess he really needed to do because the Reaper died so early. Oracle gonna be obnoxious, as it's supposed to be. 3, 4, maybe 5, maybe a Mule. Exactly, go for the Mule. And that is an effective Oracle? No, it's not, just kidding. Oh, there you go. There it is. Was not... I did not see that. The Phoenix was rallied, I guess, directly across the map. And did take the shot from the Woodamine. We'll go ahead and pick it up to go ahead and just immediately take care of that. But that was a good bit of damage on the Phoenix, which is wasn't really helpful to begin with, but now definitely will have problems against if there was like a Marine drop. It's not a Marine drop though, it is a single Liberator, and that, you know, Phoenix now even has a buddy. We'll take care of that. Slowly. Will it though, ZombieGrub? Will it though? Okay, so this Liberator's gonna get more denied mining than I thought. 2 Phoenix don't kill it that fast, but he also had a Stalker, and they should have... I thought they were going to be in position to deal with this, but I actually wanted to get a little bit more scouting, perhaps, an urgency there. Since his Oracle was taken out, and maybe thinking about a little bit of harassment. But the Liberator doesn't quite get the Stalker. I think in that situation, you do see a lot of Terrans go ahead and just focus fire with the Liberator on the probes. But Drunkenboi is probably off doing more macro things as he was getting his macro all situated when that Oracle came in. So now that his barracks are done, he's swapping them over, trying to get some pretty well-timed upgrades here. He did not get far enough back into Rob's base to see the robotics bay, which there it is, way back there. So he doesn't quite know his opponent's plan, but I feel like from what you've seen army-wise, 2 Phoenix, Oracle obviously it died, 1 Stalker, I think you have a good idea as to what they could be doing. As long as you have played against Colossus builds recently, which, I don't know, I think there might be some situations where Terrans have played a TVP in every single TVP, or 10 TVPs in the Twilight Council opener, but, and you just get kind of stuck in that headspace, but, I'm thinking Drunkenboi is keeping in mind it could be Colossus. We would still want to scan for that. We'd still want to see the 3rd base timing as well. Don't really have any strong pushes. You know, we didn't have tanks. We went directly into Widow Mines, but we do have a very strong units for the eventual just regular bio push, not really tank push. Not at all tank push. And that Raven being the very strong unit. Widow Mine will help out here a little bit. Oh, it doesn't get the splash on that super weak Phoenix, but ooh, those skills, that one does get that one. Nicely done. And then Marines over on this side grabbing another Phoenix that was being rallied in. Not too shabby. Nice little split there. A Drunkenboi, most afraid of having that Raven snipe. Did have a medevac snipe. Got a little bit of revenge and still has that Raven, as I was talking about, being very, very important. He is mostly pumping out Marines despite having double tech labs. Now adding on even further production, and those Colossus, plural, he is 2, would rip those Marines to shreds, but not if they're interference matrix. Same for the Disruptor, by the way. The Raven is going to have 4 Disruptors, or 4 Disruptors. That would be amazing if a Raven could shoot a Disruptor out. 4 interference matrix, and that could be every single robo unit that Rob has. Rob needs to be scared of this push a lot because it comes with a Raven, but it also was powered by some pretty damn good macro. And while the timing has been a little bit thrown off for dealing with those Phoenix, it is hitting with all those upgrades, including +1 attack, whereas Rob doesn't have any upgrades as of yet. So there's the scan to see what's going on. The Phoenix trying to jump on top of the Raven, and they get it! Oh, that is such an important thing that happened there. The Phoenix, I mean, if they get it eventually, but it still casts its spells, it is such a drastic difference. Rob would have been rightfully scared. Now, would he have died? I don't know about that, because he micros the Colossus back, and the shield batteries help the rest of his units, buys that time. Eventually, the Matrix disappears, but that would have been a lot scarier. Widow Mine's trying to catch the Phoenix, kind of bopping around his army. His army's almost kind of the bait here, and there it is. He does it correctly. That is such a good maneuver. Really, really cool. And the best part about that is he doesn't sacrifice his Widow Mines, where if any extra Phoenix had survived, then he's just lost at least 1 or 2. A really good anti-Phoenix play here from Drunkenboi. And while his pressure didn't actually amount to any type of attack, he does have that 3 base up and running, and now has gone into a lot more Marauder production, so his army is chunkier. But he might be overstaying his welcome. Observer comes in here. Widow Mines are going to be taken out without a second shot. I was much more worried about this pure Marine army, though. I mean, come on, you're playing with fire. He should, if he really thinks about it, realize that that can't be a Blink Stalker. I guess can't's kind of a strong word, isn't it? That it shouldn't be Blink Stalkers quite yet. With the Phoenix opener, the investment into Phoenix, how many Colossus there were, you know Blink is going to be late, and even in some cases, Protoss prioritizing charge makes it even later. But maybe there are other... I guess you could finish Twilight Council in faster than that, and it is still something to be afraid of. But if you're up against Colossus builds, start with that Stargate. There is usually an opening pre-Blink. If you can tear down the Phoenix, 4 drops for emergency evacuations, which I guess is what Drunkenboi was more thinking about, because he's done no drops, just a little bit of Liberator harassment. Very quickly into the Viking production, so it's only 2 at a time. It is already up to a count of, it's going to be at 8 soon. That's really nice, and I guess he actually is on second starport production, but yeah, there we go. Only just now really fully saturated, I suppose. Even a little bit oversaturated, just to be a little critical right there. Rob, with the supreme number of robotics units, did have to sacrifice something, and that was any type of fast upgrade. So we usually only see 1 forge with this. We see, I think, an even later forge. So +1 only just finishing just now, as opposed to maybe, you know, +1 armor being halfway done. But, ooh, didn't need to drop, actually. Drunkenboi just literally running into the natural and into the main with the initial army that he had. Now he's depending on the rest of his reinforcements and those Vikings to take care on the defense. Can he actually do it? Blink is about to finish up here. It's also just so many stalkers. Good control on the Colossus to get them away, but this is the weakest part they're going to be, actually. As the stalkers do finally blink forward to take care of this. Colossus now have an opportunity to run to the right side to protect themselves. That's exactly what they're doing. 2 of them do go down, but 2 left over, including a Disruptor. This is turning into a bit of a base. There's actually those Vikings getting a lot more shots off on that 3rd Colossus than I thought they would. That almost died. Such a drastic difference between 2 and 1 shot. Oh my god! Speaking of 1 shot, oh geez, there was so much supply going down to the Disruptor right there, but there's so many Marines left over, and the Colossus aren't coming back home to defend against this. So while Marines kind of look a little flimsy against that big splash damage, they're not flimsy against what they're up against, especially because they have an upgrade lead, 1-1 to just 1. He's about to have 2-2, but back at home, his army is so weak. Vikings pop out and immediately attack, actually, the healthy Colossus, but they will be able to get it. The 2nd Colossus, the weak Colossus, also gonna be under fire here as the Stalkers are too busy dealing with the ground army, not dealing with the Vikings. But hell, they take care of the ground army, now take care of the Vikings, but they still have this army to deal with. The Disruptor is looking for the shot. He's got to pick up! Oh, Jesus. I'm not biased, don't worry. Just, one good Disruptor shot is enough. And that was a very last-second pickup. He needs those Marines. Rob currently ahead in that army supply, and Blink cannot be underestimated as a winner in these type of situations, right? Like, the micro wins out when you're talking about the low econ, low army games, but the upgrades... Oh, he's actually not going to get +1 armor. I mean, Drunkenboi's still going to have upgrades. He's got 2-2 here, but man, he could have had 3 upgrade lead. That would have been insane. And it would have been Blink Stalker micro versus Marine micro, basically trying to catch up to the Stalkers. And also maybe some medevac micro, if it could be used. Obviously, it's a very dangerous thing to do against Blink Stalkers specifically, but sometimes that is the best bet. Okay, killing your own Marine. Marine counts. What are you doing there? Oh god. Rob rebuilding his Nexus in his opponent's face. He has not gotten every command center. There we go. There's the last one. The factory floating through the middle of the map. That factory, its best use would probably be on a Widow Mine. Nice catch on that Stalker right there. He had lifted up a lot of his units in the medevac, but did not get caught by the Stalkers. He caught the Stalkers, which reduces the armor supply just ever so slightly. I'm actually... Man, if Drunkenboi hadn't been able to get away with any more units, especially Marauders, if he had picked up 4 Marauders, I'm like, okay, I think I'm like kind of still on the Terran side, but as is, he couldn't do that. He was trying to get the Vikings to kill the Colossus. I think I actually get this to the Stalkers. Every time they blink, they, they force a stim. And medevacs are going to have a finite amount of energy. Oh, but nice catch on the Immortal. Okay, 1 less unit to worry about. And actually forcing the Stalkers to come to him up the ramp. Blink Stalker micro going down, though. That's enough Stalkers, I guess, to actually push through this, despite the significant upgrade lead for Drunkenboi. His Marines cannot do it, and no micro is going to come down here. Oh, God. You serious? Oh, Jesus. What a game. What a game. Stalkers can be very good. can't they? It's just so, it's so funny, like, I can't say if he had reversed the armies to do that, he would have won, Drunkenboi that is, because if his Marines were back at home, they melt even quicker to the Colossus. But it was one of those things where, like, if there were 4 Marauders, they have 1 extra range, they have Marauder slow, they also have that health pool that actually makes it somewhat microable against Blink Stalkers, as opposed to Marines, which they still get 4-shotted, don't they? Despite upgrades? Pretty sure. Anyways, you can really see a very close battle there, as opposed to what was increasingly obvious going to go on the Stalker's advantage. But Pure Marine, not quite cutting it either way. So, just can't. A lot of things that could have gone differently. It's kind of insane. You know, even the Vikings, after killing the Colossus, if they had somehow been able to escape, he chose to land them, hoping to help out the remaining Marauders that were kind of giving it their all. If he had run away with 3 Vikings and they're actually part of the army on the ground, that's not... that you don't shake a stick at that. That's a lot against Stalkers, but in the position that he had on that high ground. But even then, it's all about the Blink Micro, buying time, buying stims, wasting energy. And that can be a wonderful thing in that base race situation. In some cases, as good as DTs. In some cases, as good as having the option to lift your buildings. So into Thunderbird for game number 2. Rob's had a couple of really close games as we've got to cast him. Drunkenboi was certainly the initiator of that base race. If he had those... I mean, that was a lot of Marines. That wasn't just 16 Marines. That was like 30 Marines. The 4 medevacs back at home. There's a very close but probably macro game post-battle with those Colossus up against the concave of Bio Viking. But without him, they forced Rob's hand to still continue the attack, of course, but continue the attack with a base race in mind. Drunkenboi also might have felt more confident in his defense. I don't think he was planning to initiate a base race by doing that Marine thing. The ideal is that the Marines run in or get dropped in, and the Protoss kind of goes, I don't know what to do, and they kind of waffle, and then they go back home. And then you just lift and you get out. Or you die, but you still got a ton of time. That's, you know, the ideal thing to do, and that's probably what Drunkenboi was hoping would happen. But once he realized that that wasn't going to be the case, and he's like, okay, the attack is coming. Another engineering bay block, by the way. He might have actually given a lot of credit to his army. He might have been clicking on the upgrades, and he saw that he had, at one point, 3 upgrade lead. He also had ship weapons, so his Vikings were a little bit extra. And that he did have a good number of Vikings against what he saw. But I mean, the micro, you know, it was what it was. You can literally go back and replay and look at exactly how it went down, but even with some slightly better positioning and some slightly better micro, Rob was finalizing all the things he needed to defend his Colossus. And I guess we can't forget that one disruptor shot. That was quite amazing. So Drunkenboi actually quite afraid of another max packs, I guess, or just any type of proxy, early proxy, is going to get proxied rather early by a Stargate, but it's not the gateway. Still up for the engineering bay block and still goes to the high ground command center. He did get the scout on a building 7 X core, as you know, he'd already slapped on the engineering bay and then got the confirmed timing on that. But he needs to get the second timing, the second confirmation that there's no nexus, which he should easily grab, and then if he can, see that there's 2 more gateways. Now, he won't find the Stargate. Looks like, oh, they did. The SCD just went back. Thought he was still searching. He saw the Stargate, so you don't need to see too much more. Stargate plus no nexus, you kind of figure things out. He is going to stay defensive as he should. Bunker coming up. Widow Mine. He should figure out that it's gonna be... Well, it's a little weird yeah, it's a little weird because this Stargate's not exactly super close, like those Void Ray shield battery shenanigans of the past. In fact, the shield battery started over here, pretty far away from the Void Rays are actually popping. So if we do get a Viking count up, it means that they might be able to... What's the word? Intercept the Void Rays. There we go. Because the Void Rays really do need the shield batteries to help out. It's a battle of build-up. If the Terran gets 5 Vikings, then they probably are in a really good position. If they can ever get above 3, then they're constantly struggling, and eventually Rob doesn't just have Void Rays, he also has anything else he gets, right? So initially the Widow Mines, they produce really quickly. They don't need an additional tech lab or whatever for him. It is a good initial response. You do want to get to Cyclones to help, to lock on, and you do want to get to those Vikings. In fact, we've seen in the past a couple of swap-off reactors to double pump the Vikings from like innovation. But this response also I'm on board with. The Viking range is what you're working with. You also drag them into the Widow Mines potentially. In this case, drag them into the Marines. The little bit of ground buffer has died, and things are just feeling really good for Drunkenboi despite the temporary supply block. But the Cyclone with the Cyclone upgrade is what I'm like, yeah, that I could definitely get on board with that. This is already a build, just in general, guys, that has fallen out of favor. It's not really that powerful anymore, especially when it is scouted so quickly. It's also, I think, one of the easier all-ins for Protoss to kind of read into your positioning, where sometimes, a lot of times, that's where the game still goes in their favor, is because you think, oh, I defended against a DT rush, like I should be golden, but then they follow up with a charge lot all-in, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, that could happen, right? Once you see them stopping to add shield batteries, once you see no ground army, like, you know exactly that you should be pushing out soon. And to take that command center as well as continue on with your macro, so getting that stim up. It's gonna grab a Void Ray, it looks like. It does lose a Viking. Once they're in range of the Void Ray, it's actually kind of impossible to get out of range of it. That's the trick. But the Cyclone was temporarily lifted by a Phoenix. It has been grounded, and it gets the last couple of shots there. That upgrade is really, really good. No more Viking production needed, so move on to bigger and better things. In this case, it's just more Cyclones, and I do not mind that. But the Starport doesn't have to be used so much anymore. Just used for a Liberator. That Liberator is going to be able to get some scouting, and I'd say that's the most important thing right now, as that Dark Shrine does not have a response quite yet, and the first instinct of a Terran after defending an attack and putting their base on location is certainly to mule it. You need to take a second and go, okay, how is he recovering from this? This is not a great start for the Protoss, and when behind, hey, there it is, and there it's scouted by the Liberator. Drunkenboi is only just now getting his command center on location, so he should definitely have at least one scan saved, if not 2. In fact, he was already saving a scan on the main base, or the mule because it wasn't down yet. But the point is, he has energy. He's going into a Raven. You want to go into that Raven just because one DT at a time is so annoying, and the Raven is such a damn good tool anyways. I think it's an absolutely correct call. 6 probes went down, by the way, to the Liberator, which I still would say scouting the DT is very important, but it actually did a decent amount of damage. And any support of the DTs, Stalkers or then permanent Archons, are going to get obliterated by these Cyclones. That DT, you're quite bold, buddy. You're quite bold. Actually kind of lets the DT into his base, but the lock-on is too good. Raven is about to pop out, so the second DT not even worth a scan. Not worth it. Hell, actually, he's gonna use a scan. Okay. Well, that's one less mule for you. Man. A nice attempt to take out anything with such a low number of Stalkers, but doesn't even get that. Robin on the way for Rob. He is really trying to make the best out of a terrible situation. The start was not good for him. The DTs are not good for him. And now I'm not sure what else you do to recover. Sometimes like mass amount of charge lots can be a big surprise. You just like you sneak in a third Nexus as fast as possible. as greedy as you can be for whatever time you think you have, and then you just like max out on charge lots. That can be a thing. Just playing conservative on 2 bases and going into Colossus, I think, is actually not a great option here because of the Raven existing. But that seems to be his choice. Yeah. Either option for the Robotics Bay here, I think, is just immediately countered by the Raven. So he really needs to get rid of that. And then maybe. And in fact, I think the whatever pops out of the Colossus, yeah, Colossus 10, Robotics Bay, Colossus or Disruptors, is also gonna struggle against the Cyclones. If they see it, they lock onto it, and they survive their retreat from it, so they don't just die before killing it, they're gonna kill it really quickly. Really quickly. Without, like, truly committing what is, like, usually the bulk of the actual bio. These Cyclones, good units for certain. But if they die and sacrifice to a Colossus or Disruptor, then they did their service. Rob did get the snipe on the Colossus, damn it, on the Raven yesterday. Yesterday? Jesus. How long have I been casting for? 3 hours? I guess it is nighttime. Not used to casting this hour, give me a break. He did snipe the Raven last game, which was a really key point, so he's hoping he can do it again. Drunkenboi should be even more attached to that Raven, and it should be a little bit easier up against Stalkers, not Phoenix. Third Nexus does finally go down. The Disruptor option not only being the splash, right, potential, but also you can maybe sneakily put them out on the map. He just lost the very tiny army that he had. Oh, that was... I guess he thought the army was already committed to an attack, but it absolutely wasn't. He got caught there, so loses like 6 Stalkers. Still has a large ball of them, for sure, and the scan even kind of misses how big of an army there is, but these are not good units. They are not upgraded once again and about to face 1-1, so it's all about the Disruptors, and those were scanned. So now Drunkenboi has an idea of how he wants to engage this army, and by engage, I mean throw down Interference Matrix on top of them. Good focus fire on top of those Cyclones, taking away a lot of that hefty DPS, and they are weak, so they are one-shottable. Actually, most of the army will be one-shottable, I guess. But as I was saying, like, it's still, the bulk is the bio. The main unit is the Raven, so Cyclones, yeah, you did your thing. Good job, guys. Here come the Raven. It's only getting 1 interference yourself. There's the second one. Okay, so it misses 1, but that was one that was used, actually, so easy peasy focus fire on top of that. No second Disruptor shot for you. But a kind of weak army after the Sims here, and the Medevac's not healing the entirety of the army, as half of it went up to the main base, but oh boy, the probes are going down, aren't they? Medevacs might just live through this. 1 Disruptor shot, gonna grab everything else. Only a couple Stalkers needed to sacrifice to clean the rest of those weak Marines up. But 23 probes went down there. That was almost an emergency defense. The 23 probes being lost, plus Drunkenboi being on a 3rd CC with the better upgrades, everything was still in favor of Drunkenboi, even after that awkward engagement. Now going into some Liberators. Disruptors can be a problem, a serious problem. Now that his Raven is dead, now that there's a bit of a breather here for Rob to start really upping that Disruptor count. It's going to be at the sacrifice of charge or an upgrade or more Stalkers, but if he can get to like 6 Disruptors, the Terran players start scratching their head a little bit as to how to deal with that. Liberators being a very good option because, well, they don't get attacked by Disruptors, do they? Void Ray is kind of funny. It does die to the anti-warp prism setup. Stalkers did a great job denying the additional production facilities, so hopefully Drunkenboi does remember he'll eventually need to add those on. But currently building four Mirages at a time. He's the option to, anyways. I don't think he actually needed those extra 3 barracks. Well, more Stalkers being picked off. Rob just totally Hail Marying on this Disruptor play. Now has nothing to defend against the Liberators back at home. And he's just gonna tap out. GG. Awkward from the very start. As soon as the Stargate, not Nexus, was scouted, it was like... Unless Drunkenboi didn't know how to respond to it, which he absolutely knew how to. and even the new updated version, as the Void Ray shield battery stuff really was like a year ago at this point. So that was even before the Cyclone upgrade. The Cyclone change was in effect. It was already being figured out, but then now you do have that option, and it is a very good option. Last map will be Kairos Junction. The winner of this will advance on to a qualifying match. Yet to be determined. And then the loser will go down to the loser's bracket, but pretty far ahead in it. I think it's only 3 more matches for a qualifying match. I am liking Drunkenboi's TVP a little bit more than Rob's PvT. I think that first game only went hectic because the Raven was not properly used, and because Drunkenboi forced the issue of the base race. Otherwise, I was in favor. Even after the Raven was sniped, I was like, okay, this is a pretty good macro. This is a good Viking count. So I'm thinking Drunkenboi takes this game number 3, but Rob, certainly, if there's anything we've learned from the last 4 games of this guy, this being the 5th one, is that he can make some of these scrappy games work. Now, they might be scrappy because of his own decisions, but he still makes them work at the end, so it's a very nice quality to have when games get weird, especially the longer a tournament goes. Start to worry about fatigue. Suddenly you're making sloppy mistakes as your opponent does, and you feel a little bit better in those random, also random games. It's a good skill to have. I think it's a strong reason why Bly actually does well in a lot of tournaments that people don't expect them to, being the only Zerg of the qualifiers for Europe to advance. SCV Scout once again. Drunkenboi has been more than happy to engineer in Bay block, no matter what he sees. More power to him. It does offset the command center a little bit, but he has been playing rather conservative as well behind this stuff, going for the high ground command center when really didn't need to. And it looks like he once again will do it here. I like the gas steal. I'm not sure Rob did that last game. There's very few TVP builds, in fact, really none, that you don't get a second gas after that command center. 20 gas it would be usually. Actually, I'm second guessing myself, but then again, the engineering bay has thrown off his command center timing, so I'm like, hold on. Literally going through my own build order in my head as we watch the Nexus get thrown down and the Depth chronoed out, and waiting on Rob's tech choice to really get the discussion started. Yeah, command center gas depot. Command center gas factory depot. Whatever. Point is, you want a second gas much quicker than he's now going to be able to get it, especially because he can't just build a gas geyser down here while his command center is finishing, which is a little bit to help. Reaper went down on a single depth. Oof. Not supposed to happen. So I'm trying to think of the build orders that do not use a second gas. I think you can't go to Starport, that's for certain, and that's not surprising to see him go for the 2-1-1 here. And then there are some people who do 3 command center builds, similar to the TVZ build, but where you get it literally after the factory, but not a lot of Terrans do that. So it sucks, but because he, I guess, is still only worrying about one base, there's not much else to worry about except adapting to the gas steal and taking care of it. Dep just poking at the front, She can't do very much, though. She also isn't getting that much of a scout. Scan actually goes down because he wants to be very sure of who he's up against. I actually really like that. Drunkenboi has, that's what I was saying, is I think he actually has a bit better mid-game TVP, and if he's going to play safe, I think it's going to work out well against Rob. Now, if he plays this safe, this conservative against Neeb, I think that's a problem, but I think it's actually really a good idea versus Rob. But yeah, for Rob's scouting, yeah, there goes, there's an NI. He's seen the factory just barely, but he doesn't know about the starport. The amount of Marines, I think, is a tell. I mean, gosh, it's such a slightly different amount, but this Oracle will, of course, get the eventual scout, and this Drunkenboi does an amazing job with his Widow Mine placement. Which, it's here. It's actually, oh no. Okay, whew. Whew, I saw this right here. But I think he's just barely going to, no, he repositioned. Oh, but the Widow Mine was lifted. Oh, the timing's there. Oh my good lord. There was a second Widow Mine that Rob, I guess, was more so expecting, so he kind of dodges around that. But, whoa, yeah. Also gets a full scout. He went right all up in there. So, specifically at this point, seeing the starport timing, the next trigger of a Terran who isn't doing any of those earlier tank or cyclone pushes. Wall being set up. We're seeing the resurgence of walls against Protoss. It can be annoying if they're actually just macroing and they have Blink Stalker openers, because the Stalkers just are like, well, I'll poke and prod until that tank pops out. But then you also have the Observer on the high ground, and Blink Stalkers are just generally annoying. But they're definitely coming back for a lot of different Terrans. He's actually kind of looking for a full wall off. Seriously, really safe play. This will mean that nothing can jump on top of his tank if it's a full wall off. Well, actually, the tank is close enough to the wall that the Stalkers will be able to shoot over it. But if there's a Phoenix to lift the tank, the Stalkers will have to dive a little bit deeper, right, to actually get the kill. And now there's a second tank, which could have been placed in the high ground, but it isn't. Rob looked like he was going to go for a push and decides not to. Just using the Oracle now for a stasis trap, which almost got popped by a single one of mine. What are you doing there, buddy? Okay. You're scouting? Cool. Chill. Cool. Combat chill's not on the way. I guess we only had one tech lab on these barracks. Duh, because he went for 2 so quickly. Blah, blah. Third one now being transferred over to a tech lab, and that is the last tank to pop out. But 3 tanks is kind of the perfect amount to defend your 2 bases. And you got one on the high ground, 2 on the low ground. Making sure they're not getting sniped if your bio is elsewhere. Not that that has been the case this game. And Drunkenboi, now this starport's been done for a little while. Now his medevacs are out. That is usually the trigger. But oh, that stasis trap gets all of those important units. Now the bio is still to be feared, even though the stalker count has risen dramatically. But combat shield's not quite done. Will be a good opportunity for Rob to maybe tangle a little bit more than he should. It is so close to finishing, though. That stasis trap is so close to wearing off. Tank's not bad in their normal mode against stalkers. Obviously, the best case scenario is one of those tanks is siege, blasting away. But Rob wants to get on top of a push like this as soon as possible. He wants to get rid of any of these important units. Tanks, medevacs, marauders, almost in that order. If you just kind of accept the push, if you just accept Drunkenboi's positioning on some of these abusive spots, that's not so great. Especially because Rob... Ooh, oh, he did get charged. Okay. Whew. I thought he didn't have it, and I was like, this is absurd. I finished it a while ago, I guess. And +1, but not armor, actually attack. But still, so many charge lots. The tanks not gonna really get too many shots. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Hey, let yourself through. He almost blocked out his own charge lots. But the stalkers jumped up top of the tanks. Drunkenboi had already kind of abandoned hope on the tanks as soon as he saw what he was up against. And, well, he was right to do so. He's still in a little bit of trouble. Wants to drag the Zealots back into the Widow Mine. Doesn't get a shot. A little too weak. And now with the double sim here, this bio is already very weak. It's going back to a bunker that does still exist. Going back into a choke that still exists as well. But the army is just so damn weak. SCVs have to be pulled. Woodermine's looking for the shots. Actually get some pretty decent ones. Don't take out too many of the SCVs while they do it. Bunker is destroyed, but it takes up so many shots of the stalkers that will be a close but successful hold. Third CC is done. Drunkenboi just needs to get enough units out here to combat this. With the upgrade lead he has, I think he will be okay very, very soon. Rob also with no Warp Prism doesn't really have the ability to pressure or contain, even kind of as a fake. His Blink Stalker control is looking better this game than last, now that he hasn't had such an atrocious start to it. Oracle is taken out, no more Revelation, and not any Observers, so could be a problem of vision. Just immediately remake an Oracle. Liberator coming in here, you know where the Stalkers are, and while it's not too dangerous, not too bad to warp in more Stalkers, is going to force the recall in this circumstance. One Stalker will lose its life. Second one gets awfully low. But a successful removal of the monkey on Drunkenboi's back. Now his third CC can be down location, but that was a hefty denial. You know, if Rob didn't stay there with his stalkers, that is almost immediately taken once the Zealots have left. And it is a big change up in the economy, which Rob, I guess, recently fully saturating his bases was so Zealot heavy. He really wanted to take care of that tank push that he had denied himself 3 extra gases. A style we've seen from the likes of Zest a whole heck of a lot. But now, once to get into the Storm, now once to get into the better units, is adding those on. Also finally adding on that +1 armor, but it's only about halfway done. At similar time to Drunkenboi. Drunkenboi will have a 2 upgrade lead, it looks like, in about 30 seconds. A lot more Zealots being warped in, but no Warp Prism still, so they're coming in from home. Drunkenboi is going to be dealing with this first and foremost. He cannot take this lightly, even though I think he would win the engagement, especially defensively. But he needs to be thinking about the future as well. Something to deal with the storms that should be incoming after a push like this is retreated, right? Ghost Academy is done. He needs to actually build the ghosts. With the amount of money he has, I would like to see them already being built, actually. But as I say that, SCVs are forced to be pulled off the natural. Just that EMPs, even against a large amount of charge lots, are pretty effective. Almost like a Woodermine shot. And there's a whole base of denied mining. Very annoying there for Drunkenboi, who defends with his reinforcements. His upgrades are about to finish up here, and the Liberators are still a problem for Rob. Not really getting any opportunities to blink in there and snipe them. The Zealots still not being cleaned up. Big headache. Just attention taken away from the main fight, which actually is going down here. The army has been stimmed more than once without the Hundivax healing it completely up. So that was a weak army, but going through the choke, going into 2-2 upgrades with only 1-1, was supposed to go Drunkenboi's way. And it certainly did. He finally cleans up the natural, but his macro has been disturbed. We see a lot of called down supply depots. I guess when you have a decent saturation, it's not really the biggest deal. But now we have Storm now, and oh, he actually scans. It doesn't retreat fast enough, and he did not start those ghosts when I said that he probably should. The Woodermines do get a couple connections, but again, a weak Marauder army. But the Zealots are melting. Their upgrades are not what we're used to seeing. The Archons fall shortly after, and unless these have been pulled, he still finds himself at 43, 17 in total, plus the Zealot run by, right? Actually isn't that bad, because he did take a rather dominating supply lead in the army. 72-57, only now recently warping in all these Zealots. And now that we have the EMPs available, his army is supposed to be straight up better than what Rob has at this point in a different sort of game, not one that is so dependent on the charge lot warp-ins, the overwhelming amounts of them. Maybe we have a transition of Colossus already in plan, in which case Drunkenboi would be a little bit behind the curve because he doesn't have a lot of starport production, but that's not this game. Rob went for a huge swell of Zealots. He wanted to both slam the tank push as well as get a good counter. Now he's falling behind in upgrades, falling behind in that tech, as the EMP should be what really wins Drunkenboi these engagements. Just taking out the storms, but also removing the impact of the Zealots. And there goes the first EMP, catching the Eye Templars. No Archon for you, as it is sniped, and Drunkenboi has free reign over the map. Rob desperately gonna try and buy time here. We do again have a very stimmed army where a single storm could even start taking out Marauders if they have another stim. Most of these medevacs very, very dry. Actually, maybe Drunkenboi is being a little conservative because of that. He scans, sees no High Templars, and is going to embrace this attack. Without any storms added in there, with the fresh medevacs finally coming in to heal, that was not a push that Rob was really supposed to take, and just the engagement angle, how much of a concave there was. Yeah, Drunkenboi is more than welcome to embrace that, and just constantly have to remind about the upgrades, because if not, 3-2 versus 2-2 in the Protoss' favor, as some previous editions of this matchup have shown us. It's actually emphasis on the attack, which means that the Zealots really are just getting obliterated. Ghost would be great to snipe with the Stalkers. Good, again, harassment on that natural mineral line. But this is, and it's kind of odd to say, isn't it? But the Terran army is that the quality is so much better. Usually, even when the Protoss has a lower supply and is in a bad spot, you can say that the quality of their army is quite good. That's usually what Protoss is all about, is the quality of their army. But in this game, it is Drunkenboi with those EMPs. The Ghost screaming, but still getting the EMP. It was a worthwhile sacrifice there. Once again, Drunkenboi taking a good engagement, pushing off the army. And Rob is just going to go ahead and recall here. He's got to hope for a couple of really good storms, and to get that, he's got to take care of the EMPs somehow, or at the very least, get a Warp Prism. Even just splitting up the High Templars can already go such a long way, which he's trying to do. He's also looking for feedbacks. I think it was a double feedback? That was a little weird. There is finally the robotics bay for the Colossus transition, but it's too late. This is still an army that Drunkenboi is more than happy to deal with, especially because he scans and sees still no storms. That is going to be a dead fourth Nexus. The Stalkers might survive if they retreat to the north side, but then his third base will also be under attack, and Drunkenboi, oh, calling down the mule as well. He's done it. GG. Drunkenboi advancing forward to qualification match.